Tired of your old kitchen or bathroom? Upgrade to the home of your dreams with Manny and Courtney from CMK Construction. CMK Construction is Tampa's award-winning kitchen and bath leader for over 20 years. Right now, save $3,000 on a new kitchen and $2,000 on a new bathroom. And take advantage of our no money down and no interest financing until 2026. Imagine, design, build.
Streaming from the Tampa Bay 28 Weather Center in Studio A. This is Dennis Phillips Live Plus. Brought to you by CMK Construction, crafting Tampa's most exquisite bathrooms and kitchens.
How you doing, everybody? It is a Wednesday night edition of DPL Plus. The plus is often when we have some of our reporters or some of our anchors or some of our guests who come on when things aren't popping in the weather, which in Florida this year, at least this hurricane season, that's been pretty often. But we may see things change. Look, for the last 4 weeks, you've heard me on here saying, what's the word? I would be flabbergasted if we don't have some kind of development in the Caribbean or the Gulf. I mean, for so many reasons. I mean, in a La Nina, very warm water. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons as well. But overall, we're looking at that possibility of development toward the end of this month. It would not surprise me one bit. We got a lot to talk about, and we'll do that. And by the way, we're talking 12 days out. So what, right off the bat, is our rule of all rules that anything past 10 days is fantasy land, and we don't put any credence into specific forecasts, right? We know that. But when we look at something where the models are trending together, or as often is the case, to quote my cousin Vinny, if the models are identical, right, then we start looking at those trends. And while they are not identical, they're pretty close, and they're getting closer. So we're going to get into that. But if you're watching on the spot, welcome. You could be watching on cable, Frontier, Spectrum, Wow, DirecTV Stream, lots and lots of other places, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of the above. We always suggest watching on TV and then following along right here. When I point right here, this is my computer with the chat, because we got all the folks coming in, chiming in, saying hello, having their own conversations, bickering, anything and everything. It's all fair game as long as it's respectful. If it isn't, I break out the ban button, and I am not shy about bringing that thing out. Now, when Greg fills in for me, Greg's like, oh, you know what? I don't like to ban people. I do. At least when they're rude or talking politics or things like that, right? So anyway, we got a lot to talk about. But before we do, let's do some hellos. We've got Sarah in Ohio. So here, I'm going to scroll through and look at some of the other. This way, I can scroll up and see everybody, as opposed to on my Facebook page, they all go away. Anna Maria, Stephen in Clearwater, Jason, Pinellas Park. Eric is resuming lurking from Pinellas Park. That made me laugh, because there are some folks who only come when the tropics heat up. Matter of fact, Ashley Glass, who was a former anchor at our station here, now is an anchor, a morning anchor in West Palm at our sister station. And she said her mom follows me during hurricane season, but when the season's over, she's like, I don't got time for his nonsense, so she just unfollows me and then follows me again during the season. So Eric apparently is the same way. We've got Dylan. How you doing, Dylan? We have Bridget, as always, good to see you. Venice is in the house with Cindy. Steve, let's take a look at the GFS. All right, it isn't the GFS that I'm concerned about so much, but we will look at the 18Z GFS and the Euro. We've got Debbie. We've got Newport Richie's in the house with Dominique. Donna in the UP of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Northport's in the house with Carrie. Lots and lots of folks here. Thank you for stopping by, as always. Appreciate your loyalty. Diana's on a cruise on Saturday. Wants to know how cruises are going to go. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into, let's just jump in. Let's just jump in, and we're going to kind of answer questions as we go along. But we're just going to go ahead. I'm watching my daughter, her softball game, also on Game Changer while we're talking. So it is all about multitasking. You guys know that. So Mike says his daughter will be in Amelia Island this weekend. Looks like good weather. Yes, it does look like good weather. Okay, so all that we're looking at right now is Lorenzo. No other game in town, right? No other game in town for the time being. But at some point, I would expect in the near future, you're going to see something like that. Actually, no, stand by. You would probably see something like that, all right? Then you'll probably see something farther out. Then you'll probably see something like that, all right? Then you'll probably see something like that. And you'll probably have something like that. All right? That's probably how the next 10 to 12 days play out. Bridget's saying heat the buzzer up. Yep, we got to heat the buzzer up. All right, so there it is. That is kind of what I would expect based on the models. All right? So let's go ahead and start with the ensembles. Now, the ensembles are 50 some odd runs of each individual model, tweaking the details just a little bit, all right? And as they get tweaked, you look for consensus in the models. And the GFS has consistently shown development in the Caribbean and eventually either zoop or zoop or zoop or zoop. But what you're noticing now is earlier on, the GFS had almost all of these zoops like this. Now, you are seeing many, and by the way, look at those colors. Those are purple. Purples are a sub 950 millibar hurricane. All right, that's a big old hurricane. So, and this is like between the 25th and the 30th of October. So the GFS is painting a hurricane in the Caribbean between the 25th and the 28th of October. Now, that's just where we are right now. That is 10, 12 days out. We all know many things can and will change, but that's what it's showing right now. And you know me, for the longest time, I'm like, yeah, but it's the GFS-a-cane, and the GFS-a-cane always does this, so I usually take it with a grain of salt. But what caught my attention today is here's the Euro AI, which if you're new to the game, I'll explain it to you later. I'll explain it to you now. The Euro AI takes the Euro, but it also goes back and looks at data from the last 70 years of how the atmosphere performed in a certain situation. And then it takes that and tries to find a comparable situation with the weather now and makes a forecast according. So look at what you're all of a sudden seeing the Euro AI. Same development in the Western Caribbean. And at least a few of these solutions go northeast. Some go west, but at least a few of them go northeast. Same time frame, October 26th, 7th, or the 30th. And then lastly, what did catch my attention today is the 12Z Euro. Because these are the ensembles, And remember, if there's 50 some odd ensembles, you're only looking at maybe half of them showing this. But you see they start here, right? It goes, and then it starts, once it hits the Western Caribbean, as the GFS, as the Euro AI do, they all kind of blow this thing up. All right? You look at the colors. Red is probably a Cat 3 hurricane. Purple could be even stronger in terms of these individual model lines. So this is just a long-range guesstimate from the models of what they think could be happening in 12 days or so. All right? We usually look at ensembles first because it's more of a broad brush as opposed to the deterministic view, which is a single run, and this far out is just not going to be right. It just isn't. Now, we're going to show them to you, but you got to know 10 to 12 days out, those operational and deterministic runs simply are not going to be accurate 98% of the time. Every once in a while, the blind squirrel finds a nut and it might be right. But when we see the ensembles showing this kind of agreement, even though it's 10 to 12 days out, we're like, and we kind of look at it. Kind of gets our attention, right? Which is why you're seeing all this stuff showing up on social right now, because it's just what happens. And again, I have no problem showing an ensemble 10 days out, especially potentially impacting cruisers, vacationers, the Bahamas, and potentially even Florida. And I can just see the alliteration now. Halloween hurricane. I could just see it. I mean, I see it out there for some reason. Doesn't mean us, but there likely is going to be something out there. So when we come back, we'll take a look at some of those operational runs and the new 18Z runs, which I have not called up yet, and we will do that live as Dennis Phillips Live continues. Okay, so we are in our first break. So, what we got going, guys? What do we got going? So, now, you know what? Eliza asks a very good question. What happens to all the fronts? Oh, those fronts are still going to be around, and that is a great question, and I'm going to be showing you that with the operational runs coming up. So very, very good question. Let's see what else is going on. All right. So still looking at the softball game. And the operational and the deterministic runs, let's go ahead and call up those 18Zs, actually. Let's just do it right now. Shall we? Let's just go ahead and do it. All right, and we'll have it ready for the TV folk. All right, 18Z, GFS. Let's just show the US and see what it does with that. Add, and then we'll call up the Euro. Now, the Euro doesn't go out as far. But we will call the Euro up as well. All right. Welcome back to Dennis Phillips Live. Thanks for checking in. We definitely have some tropical stuff to talk about. A lot of people are asking about cruises. All right, let's go ahead. Okay, so we showed you the ensembles. The ensembles are a broad brush area, right? It's just kind of something that we look at for guidance. 10 to 12 days out, 2 weeks out, the accuracy of any operational model is just not going to be there at all. But we're chatting about it. We're looking at the possibilities, and not to mention, they're all over social as it is. So I might as well at least give you a little bit of analysis about what we're thinking and why they more than likely are going to be wrong, and what are some of the variables that come into play when showing where these long-range models are going to pop. But first and foremost, there is nothing out there right now. Well, that's not true. There is a wave. A wave is out there, and at some point in time, if the wave gets better organized, the Hurricane Center is going to drop the X. And they're going to be like, all right, here is an X. I already showed you that one, actually. I don't know where I did with it, but it's there. And at some point, let's see if they've done it yet, by the way, just for the heck of it. Let's look at the new one for the 8 o'clock advisory. Probably not. Nope. Nothing out for the 8 o'clock. So there's still nothing out there. But at some point, if the NHC believes, yeah, this is going to happen in these models, because this is 12 days out. And remember, when the NHC releases something, they always say 7 days. Expect it in the next 7 days. Well, at this point in time, it doesn't really even get going. That's a great point. Here, let's go ahead and show you that. All right? So if you noticed, some of these models that we were looking at, the ensembles, they don't really get going until right here, or even right here. So the NHC predicts what's going to happen in 7 days. 7 days is probably going to be right about here, so there might not even be development yet. So they're just going to bide their time and see how it's going, and we'll see how it happens. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of these operational runs. And take this with a grain of salt. This is the GFS, all right? Now, somebody had asked about, aren't these fronts that have been digging down going to keep something away? You know what? If the timing, and there's one of these fronts. This is next Wednesday, strong cold front. There's Thursday next week. This is the GFS bringing a strong front all the way down to Cuba on the 24th. And there is your system a week from Friday, and look what happens. It gets drawn up. See that? So that's a great question. If a front makes it all the way down there, then something would likely get drawn up into that front, okay? But look at the euro. Let's look at the euro. Now, the euro does not have nearly as strong of a front coming in toward the end of next week. Watch what happens, at least early on. So you've got your low. It's right here, still not really doing much of anything. And look what happens. There's your front, but because this is so far south, it misses it and doesn't swing and pick it up until later on in the period, and then it brings it right up. All right, so that's what the euro, and that obviously caught our attention. It's 2 weeks out. Again, take it with a grain of salt. It's not going to be accurate. But the point is, the euro is going much farther west, right? Much farther west into the Yucatan, and then lifts it back to the northeast. As, by the way, not a particularly strong system, like 980. I mean, yes, that's probably a hurricane. But if it goes that far into the Yucatan, if it were to develop, again, we're just spitballing here, it probably would not have a ton of time to develop because the water is beginning to cool in the Gulf. So maybe you're talking a 980 system, which might be a tropical storm or Cat 1 hurricane. Again, really premature. So let's go ahead and look at the 18Zs. Here's the latest one. Here's the 18Z euro. And let's see if it's showing anything different. Night and day. Look at the 18Z euro. Look how early the 18Z euro swings this out. Check this out. It doesn't go that far again. Only the US base map does. But way, way far to the east. And that is exactly what is going to happen. That is going to happen now for the next week. You are going to have models going back and forth. It's called the windshield wiper effect. They're going to be here one run. They're going to be here another run. The 0 and the 12Z model runs are usually far more accurate than the 18 and the 6Z model runs for a number of reasons. So I don't even really look at the 18Z, to be honest. Truthfully, I don't. But I'm just calling it up because we're talking about it here. But let's just kind of give an overview right now. Nothing's out there. Expect it over the next week as a wave moves across the Atlantic, nothing organized. As a wave moves across the Atlantic, moves into the Caribbean, at that point, there could be development. All right? As it moves into the Western Caribbean, the water is much warmer, and that's when a system would likely develop further. Not until it hits the Western Caribbean. At that point, if a front is far enough south, it's going to swing it right up to the north and stay east of Florida, maybe eastern Bahamas, crossing over Cuba, maybe the Dominican or Haiti, right? Or if the euro is right and it's far enough south, or the 12Z euro, far enough south, it misses that first hookup, goes into Central America, then starts to kick northeast and develop. But right now, the only thing I would say we are confident in is development in the Western Caribbean could have a huge impact on cruises that last week in October. All right, we'll talk more about that coming up in 90 seconds as Dennis Phillips Live continues. Okay, so that is our second break. I want to call that back up here. So, see if we can call up the 18Z. Yeah, see, that's a U.S. map, and it doesn't give me the oceans map, which is what I wanted. Yeah, it doesn't go out far, and it only goes out 144 on this map for whatever reason. That's as far as this one will let me do it. So, but that, again, that back and forth is totally expected. That is what we would expect to happen. So, I wouldn't think twice about it. These are the 12Zs, and the GFS. The GFS bring this, through. The Dominican, Haiti. I mean, that is absolutely a possibility. 100% is a possibility. So that's where we are on that. All right, so we have one more break, and we are back from TV in 7 seconds, all right? So here we go, in 2, 1. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Dennis Phillips Live. Again, on social, we've been just kind of going over some of the model data. So here is let's just go ahead and give you the bottom line on this, and then we're going to talk about our local weather through the weekend, by the way. Development is expected, yes. Western Caribbean would probably be about 10 or 11 days out before it would start to get going. The GFS is a little sooner. But yeah, I think there's a legitimate chance that there will be a system going into the Caribbean and developing. We've been saying it for a month now. I mean, it's just shocking to think we would make it through a season without anything at all. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully this will fizzle out. And heaven knows, we've seen it happen before, many times. But when the models show agreement like this of something down there, we at least have to keep our eyes on it, which is all we're doing. But the threat to Florida at this point is reasonably low. It ain't zero, but it's reasonably low because the odds are of it curving with all these fronts digging down, and there's a lot of them, the odds of it curving before, whatever's out there, curving before it would have a chance to impact Florida seems to be much higher. That makes more sense. Unless this is so far south that it misses those fronts and hangs out near the Yucatan and then starts to kick up to the northeast. So that's kind of where we are. Again, nothing to worry about at this point in time. We're watching it. The odds are absolutely higher that this will not have an impact than it will, but islands like the Dominican and Cuba and even cruisers for Cozumel and Belize, those are areas that legitimately have to keep their eyes on for this as we go into the last week of the month. All right? So here we go. Temperatures right now mostly in the 70s to low 80s. 87 the high today in Tampa, 82 in Clearwater. We had a lot of clouds this afternoon. This morning we started 50s and 60s. We're still partly cloudy and 82 degrees at the airport. Nice look at Ray J there. 87 the high, 69 the low. All right? We had that northeast flow, that backdoor cool front we've been talking about for the last couple of days, spawning a few showers in inland areas, and they will throughout the evening, but most of the area will be rain-free. Tomorrow morning, wake up to partly sunny skies. I do think there'll be more clouds across our southern counties tomorrow, but overall, pretty nice day. Still, though, even into Friday, look at those showers coming in across the south. So I still think there will be a few showers and some clouds south of I-4 where central and northern counties look beautiful. Low to mid 60s tomorrow morning for our northern counties, mid to upper 60s along the coast, and mid 60s inland. Rainfall, there it is. Outside of a few evening showers, nothing. Oh, you guys are talking about, you guys are still talking about a DPL cruise. I see that. I see that on there. We have been talking about it. I don't really know if I'd even be allowed to do that, but I know there are folks talking about it. How about an Alaska DPL cruise? How cool would that be? Like, how cool would that be? All right, there's a look at historically what happens in October. And boy, isn't that interesting, because that's pretty much exactly what those models are showing for the last week in October. So the wave that we're talking about is way out there off of Africa. See that? And look at, by the way, look at the way that front's digging all the way down into the Dominican and Cuba. So when you get fronts that are digging that far south, more often than not, you're going to see a curve. You just are. So, but again, 10 to 12 days out, we'll be updating every night. We'll be, Mima J's in for Alaska. I'm with you. I mean, I have never done an Alaska cruise, never. And I would love to. A DPL Alaska cruise would be awesome. Robin, the chances of development, I think, are pretty moderate. 50 to 70% chance of development down the road. The question is, where is it going to go? We just don't know yet. Water temperature is still 82 degrees in the Gulf. Northeast winds 10 to 15 knots tomorrow. The beach looks amazing with sunny skies all day long. And there is the 7-day with mostly sunny skies. Another front rolls in Monday and Tuesday, and that's the front that may very well make it all the way down and try to swing whatever is tropical off to the east-northeast, well to the east of Florida and east of the Bahamas. 10 days out, we just don't know. It's too early to tell. Back in 90 seconds with our last segment on Dennis Phillips Live. All right, we are in our last break. Yeah, I've never done an Alaska cruise. I've done a gazillion Caribbean and Bahamas and stuff, but never done Alaska. Boy, look at all you guys. Everybody's saying they'll do it. That would be interesting. I don't really know how we would do it. We'll talk about it later. Actually, this is just us. The TV people are in their last break. I mean, that's only in the summer. They don't do Alaska cruises in the wintertime. So I think they only do them from like June until September, maybe, or I don't know. I don't know. I know people have done them, but I never have. Southbury, Connecticut. David, how are you doing? Good to see you. Susie's in for the cruise. A lot of people are in for the cruises. That's funny. What are the chances of Tampa Bay, Tarpon Springs seeing anything the last week of October? I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a chance. I mean, if the euro's right, I mean, did I show you the 12Z euro? Here, we'll come back and we'll be back on TV in a second. But look, here's the 12Z euro. I mean, it brings a tropical storm right into us. All right, we are back in 10 seconds. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I mean, here, I'll show it to you in a second. All right, we are back in 3, 2. Welcome back to our final segment of Dennis Phillips Live. So somebody said, look, what's the chances that we are going to see something impacting Florida directly? Look, the chance is not zero. It's not particularly high, but it's not zero. I mean, here's your euro. And granted, it's an operational run. And it brings a tropical storm or hurricane into Florida on the 29th? The 29th of October. Again, I show you this just because, yes, there is a chance. But realistically, this is what we're thinking, all right? The ensemble showed development in the Central and Western Caribbean. At that point, it could go anywhere. But do I think the chances are better than 50-50 that a tropical storm or hurricane develops in the Western Caribbean by the end of the month? I do. Do I think it'll probably end up sweeping northeast? I do. And if you had to pin me down, gut early, maybe east of Florida. But again, it's just wait and see. Every day, every 12 hours, we'll be looking at the model runs and we'll be updating 24/7. Our team will be updating. I'll be here and I'll be answering your questions about cruises specifically coming up on Facebook as this show continues. So on TV, folks, thanks for watching. Have a great night, and we'll see you on tomorrow night's edition of Dennis Phillips Live. All right, so DPL is out on TV. So let's go back. Yeah, absolutely. Maya's right. I'm sure it'll change tomorrow because that is exactly what these do. This time of the year. All right, so let's look real quick at the U.S. forecast, because some people wanting to know where the 540 line is going to be. There's the freezing line. There's Thursday, Friday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning, Tuesday night. There's that big front. There's that big front. That's a 987 low, by the way. Look at that. That's a 987 low in northern Illinois a week from now. Holy cow. That's quite a storm. And then there's the front swinging all the way through. See that? Look at the way the front comes all the way through. And then there's your system getting caught up in the front and going northeast. Climatologically, that's more likely what will happen. But we'll just wait and see. Because, again, there's nothing there now. And, oh, by the way, there's your 540 line right there in central Pennsylvania a week from tomorrow before it lifts back north. And then there's your Fantasyland storm. All right, let's look at the Euro. What's the Euro show? Remember, the Euro has a cold bias. Friday morning, Friday evening, Saturday morning, Saturday evening, Sunday morning. It's a 990 low in Michigan. There's the one that GFS is showing, not as strong, but the Euro has two. So the Euro's got one there in the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. That's a 961 low in Michigan next Sunday. Let's see what the GFS shows. 985. So they're both showing a significant storm moving through the Great Lakes this weekend. And then another one trailing behind it with some cold air. There's your 540 line down to West Virginia next Thursday. But remember, the Euro has a cold bias. There's all the way, there's more cold. Look at that. Look at all that cold. But I repeat, boy, look at that big storm in the Pacific Northwest coming in too. So there it is. All right. All right, so let's look at more questions, and then I'm going to go watch baseball. I'm going to watch the Blue Jays and the Mariners play. All right, what do we got here? So people are talking about 540 line is just the freezing line. People are talking about our Alaska cruise now. So going to Punta Cana next week. Will it be bad? Ooh. Wait a minute. So, Kate, are you arriving there in a week and staying for a week? Because if you are, that could be bad news. That could be bad news. Hey, how's it going, Sean? Good to see you. So, yeah, anybody with, chances of a storm inland in Florida, Orlando, Alicia, I think you're fine. I doubt we have to worry about it. The Euro says yes, but I kind of doubt it. All right, but no, I'm not taking down my Halloween decorations. No, not even close. Western Caribbean next week, you'll be fine, 18th to the 24th. Arriving 22 to 26. Kate, that is dicey. That is dicey. Here, I'll show you. Again, these are operational runs, so take it with a grain of salt, but here is the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th. I mean, there's how close you are to Punta Cana, and that's the Euro. The GFS is even more north. There's the 24th, 25th, 26th. That's like right on top of Punta Gorda. That's right on top of Punta Cana with the 974 hurricane on the 26th, 25th. So yeah, I'm not saying that'll happen, but I'm saying you absolutely have to look at that possibility. U.S. Virgin Islands, 23rd to 26th, same thing. Grand Turk, same thing. Look, we'll make this one really easy. Anybody who's going to the Caribbean between the 22nd and the 30th will have to take note on this. Doesn't mean it's going to develop or hit you, but we cannot write off the possibilities anywhere in the Caribbean from October 22nd to October 29th. That's as much as we got. All are possible. All are fair game. All right? And I can't give you any more than that because these models, like I said, that far out, who knows? That's where we are. All right? Anna Maria Island. Again, Allie, if the Euro's right, we got a tropical storm coming in on the 29th. So the jury is still out. We do not know. But check in every day. I update constantly on Facebook. So I will give you guys your updates and let you know where we're thinking, what the models are doing. I know some people have to cancel plans. Look, if the GFS was right for the person going to Punta Cana, they would want to cancel. They would, because there'd be a Category 2 hurricane hitting Punta Cana on the 27th. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying that's what the models are showing now. So at the very least, you got to at least pay attention. I would not cancel. No way would I cancel anything this far out. Again, we all know these are often wrong, way off. But you can't just be like, I'm going to blow it off because I'm not worried about it. There will likely be a system in the Caribbean, potentially a hurricane, toward the end of next week, and one that could have an impact on the islands, Cozumel, potentially the Bahamas, maybe even the U.S. And that's as far as we've got. In terms of, no, it doesn't look like a Wilma. I mean, the waters, I wouldn't say because, gosh, now I don't think so because, I guess worst case scenario, if it were to stay just off of the Yucatan and then go up, I suppose, but no. It's one of the worst storms ever to form. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, this is going to be the worst storm ever. This is the last thing that I do. I'm going to go watch baseball. But here's all I'm saying, guys. Check in tomorrow. Follow me on Facebook. We'll be updating all the time. There will likely be a system in the Caribbean from the 22nd to the 29th. It could very well impact any of the islands, anyone, from the Virgin Islands to Puerto Rico to the Dominican to Haiti to Cuba to Cozumel. Any of those places could be impacted, including eventually even the Bahamas or the U.S. Or none of them could be impacted. So you don't change any plans, you don't cancel anything, but you keep paying attention. And I would guess that we would know a good 5 days out, 5 to 7 days out before anything were to hit to give folks the ability to cancel if they're going to have to cancel some plans. That's kind of where we are. All right? Okay, so you guys have a great night, and I will be updating, as always, 24/7, and we will see you on tomorrow night's edition of Dennis Phillips Live. See you guys.